We are still plowing our way through Chapter 2, Brotherhood of Darkness, and this is video number 10. Video number 10. Another argument is that Winston Churchill exposed the Zionist plot behind Bolshevism. The response. Although Winston Churchill did write an article in the London Illustrated Sunday Herald in 1920, claiming that Zionism was the force behind Bolshevism, the response from the world media was very strange. Most people who have attacked Zionism have been vilified, but Churchill always had favorable press coverage. Was that because he was part of the Brotherhood and his article was an attempt to shift responsibility for the Russian Revolution to the Jews? Another point is made that Jacob Schiff provided $20 million to finance, or that's $20 million to finance the Bolshevik Revolution. The following quotation can be found in the New York Journal-American, February 3, 1949. Today it is estimated, even by Jacob's grandson, John Schiff, a prominent member of New York society, that the old man sank about $20 million for the final triumph of Bolshevism in Russia. Other New York banking firms also contributed. Those who believe that Jews or Jewish bankers are responsible for communism invariably refer to that quotation. Did Jacob Schiff really help the Bolsheviks? Because of the progressive dumbing down of our people, most Americans don't realize there were two Russian revolutions. The first revolution was in March 1917, or February, if you use the old Russian calendar. The second was in October of that same year. By then, World War I had been underway for 3 years, and almost every family had lost at least one member. The March Revolution began in St. Petersburg when a contingent of military recruits refused to fire on anti-government demonstrators. When another army unit was sent to arrest them, they refused to obey their officers and joined the mutiny. Soon, almost every military unit in St. Petersburg was in revolt, and the anti-government demonstrations began to spread. In an effort to quell the uprising, the Tsar ordered the Duma to disband so he could assume dictatorial control. When the Duma refused, the Tsar was forced to abdicate. Alexander Kerensky was chosen to lead Russia until elections could be held. When it became obvious that he intended to continue the war, the German High Command approached Lenin, who was living in Switzerland. They knew he was a professional revolutionary, so they offered him money and transportation to go to Russia to overthrow Kerensky. Trotsky was living in the United States at the time. German agents sent him to Russia to help. When the two men arrived in St. Petersburg, they began building support for a counter-revolution. Initially, they were financed by Germany, but after the Bolshevik Revolution, when Lenin continued the war, the Germans cut off his funds. At that point, the Bolsheviks had to get money and supplies elsewhere. What part did Jacob Schiff play in fomenting the Bolshevik Revolution? During World War I, the American State Department was responsible for collecting intelligence information. Their files confirmed the fact that Jacob Schiff opposed the Tsar, and after Kerensky took power, Jacob Schiff sent Kerensky a telegram congratulating him, but the Bolshevik Revolution didn't take place until 7 months later. Anthony Sutton was a resident scholar at the Hoover Institute for many years. When he examined the State Department's intelligence files, he found evidence that Jacob Schiff opposed the Bolsheviks and encouraged our State Department to oppose them. If that is true, where did the Bolsheviks get their money after the German High Command stopped funding them? It is impossible to demand what happened during that era unless you know about the protocols of the learned elders of Zion. And some of you remember that I did read that. And I have a book that also is a counter to that book. The document first appeared in Russia in 1905. It claimed that Zionists were behind the wars and revolutions of the 19th century and planned to seize control of the world. Many Russians believed the protocols, and they began to persecute the Jews and destroy their property. When the Tsar refused to intervene, Jacob Schiff began plotting to depose him. He provided revolutionary literature to the Russian soldiers captured by the Japanese during the Russo-Japanese War in 1905, and when they returned home, some of the soldiers were disillusioned with the Tsar's government. It is even possible that some of the soldiers who participated in the March Revolution read Jacob Schiff's literature, so he may have played a part in inciting the March Revolution, but that was not the Bolshevik Revolution. When Anthony Sutton researched the State Department's intelligence files, he found documents showing that English and American financiers provided funding for the Bolsheviks, but that fact is never mentioned today. Could it be that the story of Jacob Schiff's $20 million gift to the Bolsheviks was contrived to divert attention away from the real source of their funding? The protocols of the learned elders of Zion were circulated throughout Europe during the early decades of the 20th century, and many people believed them. That led, at least in part, to the anti-Semitism that brought Adolf Hitler to power. Henry Ford circulated the protocols in the United States and wrote a book entitled The International Jew, which claimed that Jewish bankers were responsible for World War I and the Bolshevik Revolution. Henry Ford supported the Nazis, and Hitler acknowledged his support by awarding him the highest German medal available to civilians. The Ford factories in Germany provided trucks, tanks, and vehicles for Hitler's armed forces. That would have been logical if Henry Ford really believed that Jewish bankers were responsible for the Bolshevik Revolution, and Hitler opposed them. The problem is that Henry Ford also built a factory complex in Russia to help the faltering communist economy. Why did Ford promote anti-Semitism in the United States, support Adolf Hitler in Germany, and support the Bolsheviks in Russia? At the present time, the Ford Motor Company has 6 factories in communist China and plans to build more. Henry Ford helped the Bolsheviks in the 1930s, and today his company is helping the Chinese communists. Why? We will pick this up in the next video. That was video number 10 of chapter 2 in Brotherhood of Darkness by Dr. Stanley Monteith. See you in the next video.